hypothermia can cause bizarre risk-taking behavior.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2023 horror film Snow Falls, a film that is co-written and directed by Colton Tran, and it stars Anna Grace Barlow, Jonathan Bennett, Johnny Birchtold, Patrick Fabian, James Gaisford and Victoria Morales. Right, the film follows a group of friends who go to a cabin to celebrate the new year. Now, this cabin belongs to the parents of one of the people in the group. They head out there to celebrate New Year, have a great time, but unfortunately there is a freak storm takes place and they get trapped, so they can't leave. The roads are blocked, there's no way out, and they are slowly running out of power, supplies and food. And madness soon begins to take hold of the group. Right, what are my thoughts on Snow Falls? Well, this one is one of those films that kind of plays around with an interesting premise but never really pulls the trigger. And what I mean by that is the film suggests that there is something in this snow, some kind of toxic, some kind of chemical that is spreading to the group, kind of making them hallucinate, all this kind of stuff. And then it slowly kind of starts driving them mad. However, there is also a very real possibility here, a far more realistic possibility. The fact that they may all really just be suffering from hypothermia and lack of sleep, and chronic lack of sleep, and so therefore they are going to be hallucinating. I mean, there's many studies out there that suggests what will happen to you, with sleep deprivation and hypothermia and all this kind of stuff, and it's just not pleasant on the human body. So the film never really pulls the trigger on that premise, the fact that there may be something toxic in the snow, there may be something else happening that is actually kind of making this group of people kind of slowly turn to madness, sort of thing. The other premise is far more likely, and to be fair on the film, it kind of lets you make your own mind up, really, which I don't mind. Some films, they'll hammer home a premise and just run with it, and this one kind of leaves it open to you. If you want it to be something a little bit more horrific or supernatural, then you can maybe think it is something in the snow. If you want to think a more scientific route, the film gives you that premise as well. So it's one of those films, really, that lets you kind of decide, I guess. But the problem, I think, with this film is, number one, it's just terribly slow-paced, and not a lot happens throughout much of this film, and when it does kind of happen, it never really fully commits to the horror aspect of the film. You know what I mean? It feels more like a thriller this than a horror, if I'm being honest, and the characters are not overly interesting, and I feel like I say this a lot in reviews. It doesn't take a lot, you would think, to write some interesting characters, and you've got a group of people here, and one of the issues I found certainly was they're supposed to be great friends. They're celebrating the new year together, and they felt like strangers, a lot of them. You know what I mean? There was no chemistry, and the dialogue wasn't interesting, and the characters were kind of given some dull issues to deal with. I don't know. I just could not connect with any of these characters, even the ones that wanted you to. Which I thought was a shame, because when you start seeing these characters decline mentally, you've got nobody really to kind of root for, or get behind, or hope they're going to kind of get out of the situation that they're in, and it all kind of becomes a little bit predictable as well. You know what I mean? It's almost like, again, a premise for a pretty good anthology story, this, that has been stretched out over I think it's about 80 minutes long, maybe a little bit longer, this film. So thankfully it's not too long, this film. but at the same time, I'm not saying it's torturous to watch either. It's just it's an interesting premise again, and I think I feel like I say there's a lot in films. It's an interesting premise that is not really executed well. It doesn't feel like a horror. There's nothing scary here, other than the concept, I suppose, being trapped. But it just they're not doing things that a rational person would do. But you could argue, well, they're not thinking rationally because they're sleep deprived and they're hungry and all this kind of stuff, and they're suffering from hypothermia. Well, there were some things they could have done about some of those things. The hypothermia, you know what I mean? Okay, they've run out of power. And then the fire goes out and they're like, oh, well, that's it. The fire's gone now. And they're surrounded by stuff they could burn. And even though there's one of the characters in the story saying, no, you can't burn that. That's my parents. They'll kill me, sort of thing. Sorry, mate, sit down or we are going to freeze to death. And I am going to burn this table whether you like it or not. So, I mean, the house was full of things that they could have, kept the heat going with in some aspect. So, again, they don't make sensible decisions in these situations, in these scenarios. So, it's hard to get behind him because you're just kind of, well, you're just stupid. You're not doing the right things to survive in this scenario. But I don't think this is a huge disaster or anything. Like I say, the production values are decent enough. The cast, while I didn't like any of the characters, the performances are of a decent standard and the concept is interesting. I just think this could have been far, far better if it had played around with the ideas a little bit more creatively. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll be back with more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.